From gardening to animals to extreme renovations, welcome to Homesteading at College Hill Farm. Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Today we're continuing our series on casual and complementary prepping, and we're talking about all those fowl and rabbits that you can raise on your homestead. Be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. I'll put a link to our other videos in this series right up here. But be certain to come on out and subscribe. And if you hit the bell, it'll notify you when we upload a video. So let's go ahead and talk about today why you should diversify your homestead. Now, diversifying your homestead means that you can do things that if one thing fails, you've got another one to fall back on. That is a wonderful part of all preppers. You know, we need to find out what makes our prepping work for us in such a way that we can be sustainable in case SHTF, okay? So that's what we're working toward today. We're continuing to discuss about animals on the homestead. Today we're going to concentrate on ducks, geese, turkeys, and rabbits. With those four, along with chickens and goats and sheep and pigs, you can really diversify the meat on your homestead and really do some things that can really help you to decide how to move forward. So with that on mind, let's go ahead and look at what diversification and what each of these animals can do for you. Since it's so close to Thanksgiving, let's start talking about the lowly turkey. There are about 100 million turkeys grown in the U.S. every year, and turkeys, basically for the homesteader, you're looking at about 100 pounds of feed to give you a 21-pound turkey. So let's think about it for a minute. Tom turkeys are the males. Young turkeys are called poults, and females are called hens. Now, sometimes a young male turkey can be called a Jake if he's not grown into that full Tom turkey yet. They're easier to keep than chickens. They're fairly docile for the most part. Sometimes during breeding season they can get a little aggressive. But unlike chickens, they nest on the ground. You don't put nest boxes up off the ground for them. They're a little cleaner than chickens. But the poults are harder to keep alive, so you always need to keep that in mind. Turkeys can fly, so you got to clip their wings or else they'll fly away from you. From live weight to carcass is about 70%. From carcass to meat, it's about 50%. And turkeys lay about 2 eggs a week during the summer, so till they get about 14 or 15 eggs, and then they stop. There are 865 calories in a 1 pound of turkey. Now let's talk about one of the biggest farm fowl. Let's talk about geese. Geese are great for the homestead. Like goats and sheep, they eat grass, so they're real easy to take care of. They can live up to 25 years. They mate for life. Not always, but for the most part, they mate for life. They can be very protective of their goslings and their mate, so you got to pay attention when you go in with them. They lay about 12 eggs a year. The male geese is called a gander. The female goose is called a goose. And the babies are called goslings. Geese were one of the first domesticated animals. They were domesticated in Egypt some time back. From live to carcass weight, it's about 70%, and from carcass to meat, it's only about 44%. So, but geese have a very high calorie count. The average calories for a goose is 1,080 calories per pound. Now let's talk about ducks. Ducks are fairly easy to raise. They're messier than chickens. And some people think you have to have a pond, but ducks do fine without a pond. You can give them a little bit of water, splash around in, and they're tickled to death.
Their eggs have more protein than chickens do, and as a matter of fact, they're about double the calories. Ducks nest on the ground, and they can be eaten at any time. That means you can eat a duck when it's old or young. It doesn't matter. Heavy breed ducks, like the Pekin, can be ready to eat in 8 weeks. That's pretty good when you compare them to a heritage breed chicken, which takes 27 weeks. Muscovy hens are probably the best for setting. Pekin ducks don't set too well, but if you've got a couple of Muscovy hens that'll set on their eggs, you've got it made. They need plenty of water. They have to wash their food down with water. Now, ducks, one of the drawbacks to ducks is they're super loud. They're social animals. They need more ducks around. They're very cold hardy. Don't let them in your garden. Ducks will not necessarily eat your plants, but they'll trample them down. They just don't pay attention to where they're at. Pekin ducks are a good example. They lay about 4 eggs a week. And from live weight to carcass, you get about 70%. Then from carcass to meat is about 42%. And ducks are super high calorie. With a duck, you're going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,529 calories per pound. Now let's talk about more exotic breeds. Things like guineas, which are great watchdogs, and they lay quite a few eggs, but I'm not a big fan of guineas, so I don't know how you would want to do those. Maybe you could use them for barter. Peacocks would be in the same thing. I want to have a set of peafowl on my homestead, but I don't know if it's worth the expense. The old timers used to eat them, but I don't know if I would want to raise them for food or not. They're a very big bird, though, so they could have a lot of nutritional value. The next on our list are quail. Now, I'm not sure that I would raise quail on my homestead. They lay eggs, and you get a little bit of meat out of them, but I'm not sure that there's enough return when it comes to quail to give us what we would want to use on our homestead. Now let's talk about rabbits. The average U.S. consumer has never eaten a rabbit, but there are about 500,000 rabbits sold annually in the United States for food. The male rabbit is called a buck, and the female rabbit is called a doe. Baby rabbits are known as kits. About 60% of the entire rabbit population of the world lives in North America. Rabbits can't throw up, so you need to make sure that you feed them appropriate food, or else it can really cause them a lot of problems. A good meat rabbit will reach market weight or butcher weight in about 7 to 8 weeks. There's no real market for other things about a rabbit. Its fur. Most of the commercial things done with rabbits are either as pets or as meat. Now, rabbits have one of the best conversion rates from feed to meat of all the animals, so they convert real well. The live weight to carcass for a rabbit is about 53%, and then the carcass weight to meat ratio is about 50%. So rabbits are pretty good for that kind of conversion. A rabbit is a very lean creature. It's about 616 calories per pound.
When we talk about the creatures on our homestead, let's look at this in prolific order. There's a good reason for the old saying, breed like rabbits, because rabbits are the ultimate homesteader small animal, because rabbits turn hay and a little bit of grain, a little bit of pellets into meat at a higher rate than most other animals on your farm. It takes 30 days from the day a rabbit is bred till it has its first litter, and then you can give it about 35 days and breed that rabbit again. Now, you can breed them almost the day after they have a litter, but that's a little mean. So Give them about 35 days to raise that litter up and get those little ones ready to start eating before you breed her back. A good meat rabbit is going to yield in about 3 months, 90 days, going to give us a fryer. And that fryer is going to carcass out to about 2 pounds, which is a pretty good size for a rabbit. If you wait 8 months and get an older rabbit, that rabbit is going to carcass out at about 4 pounds. But the truth is, for the extra food and stuff that you have to give them, you're better off to cull them all at fryer level. So you get them at fryers, you've got this 2 pound carcass ready to go. And remember, rabbits are really lean meat. That 2 pound carcass is going to give you, for, let's say you raise 10 of them at a time. You know, we're going to concentrate on how many. So let's say every 3 months you process 10 rabbits. The litter would be somewhere between 6 and 12. A lot of times you'll have 8 to 10. So let's just say 10 for the heck of it. Let's say you're going to process 10 rabbits every 3 months. And those fryers, that's going to be 20 pounds worth of carcass. Okay, 2 pound carcass, 10 of them, 20 pounds worth of carcass. So you get 50% of meat from a rabbit, from the carcass. When you get rid of the bones and all that stuff, you get about 50% meat. So we're talking about 10 pounds of meat from those 10 rabbits is all you get. It doesn't seem like a lot, but you got to remember, you're going to do that 4 times a year. So let's keep talking here. For that 10 pounds of meat, there are 616 calories. Well, if you multiply that out, that's 6,160 calories every 30 days to go in your freezer. Well, if you keep on with that thought, you're going to do that every 90 days. Well, there are 4 90 days in a year. So times 4, and that one doe can put you 24,640 calories worth of food in your freezer. That's a lot from one doe. Imagine if you had 5 does doing that. And 5 does don't take up a 4x8 sheet of plywood in space. You can keep them in that small an area. So 32 square feet. So those 5 does would give you 123,200 calories. You know, 24,640 times 5. 123,200 calories. And imagine what little they eat. They eat hay and they eat some rabbit pellets. So that's how rabbits could really contribute to your homestead. And it doesn't have to be meat for you to eat. It could be meat for your chickens for added protein. It could be meat for your pigs for added protein. See where I'm going with this? It could be meat for your ducks for added protein. So rabbits can really be a big addition to your homestead. Plus, there's no money available for rabbit fur, but we'll talk about that at the end. Now let's talk about the second most prolific of the possible animals on your homestead. Let's talk about ducks. Now I'm going to confine myself here to a dual-purpose duck called the pekin. There are a lot of others, ruins and call ducks and a whole bunch of other ducks that you could use on your homestead. But I'm going to stick with the pekin because it's an easily available duck. It's a good dual-purpose duck. It's a heavy breed that's going to give you quite a bit of meat. So let's talk about those for a minute. Pekin ducks give about 4 eggs a week through the season, and it's about 30 to 35 weeks they're going to give you those eggs. Now a Pekin duck egg is more calories and protein than a chicken egg because it just is. It's about double. It's about 140 calories for a Pekin egg. Now I'm not a fan of duck eggs. Just saying. I'm not a fan of duck eggs. But the pigs are a fan of duck eggs. The chickens are a fan of duck eggs. Any of your meat eaters on your homestead are a fan of duck eggs. So don't think that duck eggs have no value. I'm just not going to be one that wants to eat them. So I'm not going to consider those as food. As a matter of fact, those duck eggs are going to make more calories than the duck meat. Let me say that again. Those duck eggs are going to make more calories than the duck meat. If you did that out, 4 eggs times 140 times 32 weeks, you'd see that 1 pekin is going to give you quite a few calories worth of eggs. You can do the math. I'm not going to worry about that. But we're going to talk about meat. Pekins are great at making meat. They're great, but they're terrible at sitting on eggs. So you're going to have to incubate them. They make 4 eggs a week. You know, we've just said that. 4 eggs a week per duck. So you're going to have to find some way to hatch those eggs, either by incubator or by some other method. Well, what my boys have always called them buzzard ducks ever since I can remember. Muscovy ducks that have the carbuncle on their head and face. They are excellent mamas. They love to sit on a clutch of eggs, and they would be perfect to hatch out your Pekin duck eggs. Does that make sense? They would hatch them right out, and no power needed, no electricity, so they could be your incubators. Muscovy ducks are great at doing that. So once you get these little things hatched out, you raise them up, and when they get to be 8 weeks old, they're ready to butcher. Well, imagine a heritage breed chicken. A heritage breed chicken is going to take 26, 28 weeks to get to that size where you want to have a nice fryer. Well, these ducks, these Pekins, are going to get to that weight in 8 weeks. So you get a nice fryer carcass. Now, if you want to raise them longer and you don't care about plucking pin feathers are a thing, and they're tough. They're even worse than geese, but we'll talk about that when we get to geese. Pin feathers are tough, and it's a lot easier to get rid of those pin feathers before they get them. So 8 weeks is when I would prefer to do my Pekin ducks. And if they're 8 weeks old, they're going to give you about a 5-pound carcass. That's pretty good. So now, out of that 5-pound carcass, you're only going to get about 2.1 pounds of meat. Okay, their percentage is only going to give you about 2.1 pounds of meat per duck. But duck is a powerhouse of calories. Okay, they put on fat good. They're just a powerhouse of calories. A duck is 1,529 calories per pound. So when you look at that, these ducks, you got 2.1 pounds. Every duck is going to give you 3,210 calories. That's pretty doggone good for a measly little duck. 3,000 calories. So if let's say you raise 30 of them a year, it wouldn't be that hard to raise 30 for 8 weeks. You know, you could put them in a chicken tractor and move them around and give them some water to play in, and they'd be tickled to death. You could raise 30 of them for 8 weeks, and if you raise those 30 birds, that would be 96,300 calories. Plus, your laying Pekins are continuing to lay eggs. They're continuing, and that's feeding your chickens, high protein snacks, that's feeding your pigs, okay? Any other protein loving animals on your homestead can be fed those Pekin duck eggs. And to get that, 5 females and 1 male would make it so that you could have 30 a year without a problem. 5 females and 1 male. And then 3 Muscovy ducks to take care of the incubating. Okay, that's what ducks can do for us. Let's talk about the next most prolific, geese. Well, geese on your homestead can be a huge bonus. A geese is a fairly large bird. They produce a fairly large carcass in a short amount of time. Geese mate and breed or lay their eggs sometime between March and May, and they nest. Best practice with the geese is probably to take their first 4 or 5 eggs yourself and just go incubate them, or put them under a Muscovy duck. You can take the first 4 or 5 and then incubate them yourself, and then let them raise their own from then on. So that you'll get a set of goslings that they are taken care of, and then you can get a set of goslings out of the incubator or out from under your Muscovy ducks. So we've got these geese, and the thing about geese is they mate for life, and they live for 25 years, so geese are going to be around for a long time. As a matter of fact, if I got some geese right now, they'd probably bury me. So if we look at geese as a persistent homestead animal, you could really get a lot of calories for the lifetime of a set of geese. But they mate for life, so you really want to make sure that you keep a set together. Now, I don't mean that you have to have 1 goose and 1 female, or 1 goose and 1 gander. You don't have to do it that way. You can come up and have 4 female geese serviced by 1 gander. Now, once they're established, and it will take them maybe 2 years to come to the realization that they're all mated together. Okay? It'll take them a little while. But once they realize that they're all together and that's all there's going to be, they will take to having 4. But don't try and break them up. You'll ruin them all. So they will be mated for life. Those 4 females and 1 gander will all be mated for life, and that's the way it'll be. So if you try to break them up, they'll be tore up. Imagine losing your spouse. So that's the way they're going to be about it. Now, the eggs that they lay, they're only going to lay from March to April. So somewhere between 12 and 17 eggs. Some will lay as many as 20 eggs, but somewhere between 12 and 17 is what they're going to lay. And depending on the breed, they take 28 to 35 days to hatch out. Now, I would like to do Toulouse, but the big white geese would be just fine with me. You just got to remember that they'll fly on you till they get big. When they get big and fat, they're probably not flying nowhere. They'll be ready to butcher somewhere between 9 and 12 weeks, or 22 weeks, I'm sorry. Somewhere between 9 and 22 weeks. Now, if you don't mind pin feathers, you can let them go longer. If you do mind pin feathers, you do them around 9 weeks. Well, I'm going to say somewhere in the middle, 13 weeks, 13 or 14 weeks. And for that, you're going to get about a 14-pound bird. Well, that 14-pound bird is going to yield you a 9.8-pound carcass. And then that carcass is going to yield you 4.3 pounds of meat. Well, goose meat is a pretty good hefty meat. It's 1,080 calories a pound. So for that 4.3 pounds of goose meat, you're going to get 4,644 calories. Now, if you raise just 10 of those a year, that's 46,440 calories. Now, what are you going to do? I'm talking about just raising 10. If you've got 4 geese and you're raising only 10, that means each one of those is only giving you about 2.5 eggs. What are you going to do with all those other eggs? Well, they're going to make little geese, and you can sell them. You can barter them. You can trade them. Those little geese don't have to be unusable, and they're going to give you that for 18 or 19 years. Once they get 18 or 19 years old, the egg laying goes way down. But, 25-year-old goose, hey, he ought to get to just hang around. And the good thing about geese, they eat grass. So that's what geese can do for us. Okay, we've come to the bird that I love to eat the most. we're talking about turkeys. Well, turkeys have been raised by homesteaders for years and years and years. Paul raised them. All of his brothers raised them. Everybody I knew about it raised turkeys as I was growing up. Are turkeys dumb? A lot of people have got this myth that turkeys are dumb, that they'll stand in the rain and look straight up until they drowned. That's a myth. Turkeys are smarter than most humans I know. You ever hunted one? You ever tried to kill a turkey with a bow and arrow? They're a lot smarter than some humans I know. So turkeys are great for the homestead. They lay on the ground. You have to have some place for them to roost, but they lay on the ground, so their nest boxes will be on the ground. They lay around 4 to 17 eggs a year, starting in March. Generally, by the time May gets here, turkeys are done laying. So, like with geese, you want to take those turkey eggs, the first few that they lay, and incubate them, or use a Muscovy duck to incubate them. You know, those Muscovy ducks are awesome little creatures, and to have a bunch of them on the homestead is a great thing. So it takes 28 days for turkey poults to come out. Now I'm going to talk about heritage breed turkeys, not the big breasted turkeys. You know, the big breasted turkeys that they raise for commercial use, those things can't even breed. So because their breasts are so big and get in the way, they can't breed. So they're bred by artificial insemination. So I don't want to even consider that. I want to talk about a turkey, a heritage breed turkey that you can raise, that's going to give you, it's not going to give you that great big breast that you get from other turkeys, but it is going to give you a considerable amount of breast and dark meat, but it's going to be a lot more flavorful than what you're used to. So let's talk about them for a minute. Heritage breed turkey, something like a bourbon red or a Narragansett or something like that, or a blue slate. Those turkeys are going to need to be about 8 months to a year old in order for you to butcher them. So you're going to have to let them grow for a long time so that they're big enough to butcher and have a considerable amount of breast meat. So we're talking about a 21-pound bird at the end of a year, between 8 months and a year. We've got a 21-pound bird, and that would be carcass weight. Or I'm sorry, that would be the live weight, and the carcass weight would come out to about 14.7 pounds, which that's a fair-sized turkey when you buy them in the store. If you think about it, a 14-pound turkey, that's probably about average of what you buy in the store, but they process them at like 4 months. All right, now, so you've got this 14.7 pound carcass, and about 50% of that winds up being meat, so 7.35 pounds of that is meat. So with that meat, turkeys are a lot leaner than ducks and geese, about 865 calories per pound of a turkey. So every turkey that you process like that is going to give you 6,357 calories. So that's pretty good. It's about what a goose is going to give you. It's about what a duck's going to give you in calories. Well, it's about double what a duck's going to give you, but it's double the bird. Now, let's say you raise 10 of those a year. Just 10. That's 63,570 calories. Now, you've just raised 10, but in order to do that, you've got to have at least 3 hens and a tom. Well, 3 hens and a tom are going to give you a lot more than 10 eggs. What do you do with the rest of them? Well, just like with geese, you can either put them in your freezer or you can sell the poults. Turkey poults are expensive. Young turkeys are expensive. So you could sell or barter those for the other things that you might need on your homestead. So let's look at overall what these can do. Well, that's a few of the possible critters you could be raising on your homestead to add to your sustainability. Are there others? Yeah, there are a lot of others. I could have included guineas and peacocks and ratites, you know, ostriches and emus and those kinds of birds. But I didn't include those because they're real special. They're hard to obtain. It's easy to obtain a Pekin duck, some dewlap geese, I don't know, rabbits of all shapes and sizes. There are lots and lots and lots of different rabbits, and ducks. It's easy to obtain those locally. Wherever you're at, almost every farmer community has access to those breeds. So I really didn't worry about covering the more exotic animals. You can have those, but that's up to you. They might actually even be worth more at barter. But let's talk about some of the things. We talked about meat and we talked about eggs, but let's talk about some of the other things that those animals can add to you. Let's take geese, for example. Those big pin feathers, have you ever wondered why they call that a pin? Well, it's simple. This, in olden times, was made from the pin feathers on a goose. So you could actually take those. A lot of people do this reenacting, and you know what I'm talking about. They reenact, they do different stuff. You have to excuse me, I got a little cold. They reenact, and they want to do things like they did back in the 1800s. So they get duck feathers or goose feathers and make quills out of them. Well, you could sell those or barter them, that kind of thing. When I was a kid, Paul kept a number 4 wash tub full of chicken and duck feathers. Full, all the time. And when he needed to update his pillows, well, that's what he did. He updated his pillows with duck feathers or chicken feathers. He had these dried feathers in a number 4 wash tub all the time out in the barn. The other part, you could make down jackets, quilts, all kinds of stuff like that. Turkey feathers are always in want for people for the displays and different things. So you can make a lot of different things out of turkey feathers. The rabbit fur basically has no market value, okay? Rabbit fur, you could tan it and make your own gloves and mittens and muffs and ear muffs and things like that out of the rabbit fur. You could do that, and it would be one of those things that you might be able to barter that tanned hide so that other people could do the same. And SHTF, well, it might be beneficial. But for the most part, rabbits, the only value you're going to get is from the meat. Now, there is one other thing that you get from all of these that I almost forgot. I didn't even write it down here on my paper. Poop. Rabbit poop is the best stuff in the world in your garden. It won't burn your plants. You can put it straight in the garden. It's awesome stuff. If you want to make the best cucumbers you ever did, rabbit poop. And as a kid, whenever we wanted to go fishing, we would dig around under the rabbit hutch and get the grubs, because grub worms were always there. The big old white grub worms. We would dig those babies out and wear the catfish out in our creek where we lived. The catfish and the little bass, they loved the things. So those are 2 things that you can get from that rabbit. There's a lot of places that just a few of these critters could fit in on your homestead. You could do a lot of things that would help you move more towards sustainability. Now, if you like this kind of stuff, this homestead and do-it-yourself kind of lifestyle, store your own food, how much do I need for a year, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this kind of stuff every week, sometimes 2, sometimes 1, sometimes 5. Just depends on what's going on our homestead that week. So with that being said, it's time for me to get on to the next thing.